I think professionally they've gone down dramatically, and I predicted it in the book, but even I would not have thought it'd be that accelerated.
There are so many telltale signs that something is clearly wrong with Meghan, and I don't mean it in a bad way.
Many people out there have been speculating on that Meghan Markle has lied about her age. Is she actually older?
It's saying that she's 44 years old. But is this true, guys?
But I mean, how can you get your age so wrong?
There's something that keeps coming up whenever people dig deep into Meghan Markle's background, and it's not about fashion choices or royal feuds. It's something far more fundamental. A question that once you start looking at it closely, becomes surprisingly difficult to shake off. How confident are we really about when Meghan Markle was actually born? The 4th of August is her birthday, at least according to the date everyone has come to accept. August 4th, 1981. That would make her 44 years old as of this recording. But what if that number doesn't quite hold up when you start comparing it to the timeline of her own life? Because the closer certain researchers and biographers have looked, the more the dates seem to drift in directions that don't add up. And this isn't some fringe conspiracy bubbling up from random corners of the internet. The person driving this conversation is Tom Bower, one of Britain's most well-known investigative biographers, a man with a long track record of holding powerful figures accountable through meticulous research and documented sourcing. When someone with that kind of reputation starts raising questions about a public figure's age, people tend to sit up and pay attention.
She's pushing because she's looking for survival and to flourish, and the system will not, it's going to break because it can't cope with her own narcissism.
So I have to ask, is this woman crazy? Is she that much of a liar? Or is there something deeper?
And not a surprise here because, yeah, she lies a lot about her stuff. We've caught her in so many lies. Her own sister has come forward, her family, everybody is exposing the lies that she's been telling.
So let's walk through everything that's been uncovered, piece by piece, and let you decide what to make of it. To understand why Tom Bower's claims carry weight, you first need to understand who he actually is. He is not a tabloid writer chasing clicks or a social media commentator building drama for engagement. Bower has spent decades in British journalism, writing serious, deeply researched books about some of the most powerful people in the world. His past subjects include figures like Robert Maxwell, Mohammed Al-Fayed, Simon Cowell, and even King Charles III himself. His approach is methodical and blunt. He gathers records, seeks out sources, conducts extensive interviews, and then builds a case the way a lawyer might, presenting findings rather than rumors. That is why, when his 2022 book titled Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors landed, it caused such a stir. The book didn't just raise eyebrows with gossip, it presented what Bower described as documented inconsistencies across several parts of Meghan Markle's public biography.
It's not going to last anymore. They're now on a sharp downward spiral, and what is so fascinating to all of us is, how will it end? What is going to be the explosion at the bottom? How is it going to occur?
Never mind the hysterectomy stories that her family have told. But that would make it more difficult because that would make Meghan Markle near 50.
The picture it painted was of someone deeply focused on self-presentation, image control, and upward mobility. Whether readers agreed or disagreed with that characterization, the book was hard to ignore because of how specifically it laid things out. And one of those specifics, the question of age, has recently started getting a second look. Critics who had moved on from the book initially are now circling back, because new angles have emerged that seem to connect things Bower raised with details that have surfaced elsewhere. That combination is exactly what makes this story so stubborn. It refuses to settle. The detail that lit the fuse on this particular debate comes from a printed publication, and that matters because print has a fixed, dateable record in a way that online content sometimes doesn't. The issue in question is a March 1997 edition of a well-known teen magazine. And within its pages, a young woman identified as Meghan Markle was reportedly listed as being 21 years old.
Because why would this old 1997 publication of 17 say that Megsy was 5 years older than she was? Saying that she's 21 years old, which would make the year of her birth then circa 1976.
Did you know that in 1997, when she met Yasmin Bleeth, when she claims that she was working for Humphrey Yogurt, age 13, She also, or somebody with the name Meghan Markle, filled out a questionnaire for Sears, the company, claiming that she was 21 years of age.
Here's where the arithmetic becomes a serious problem. If Meghan's official birth year of 1981 is accurate, she would have been approximately 15 years old in early 1997. Not 16, not 17, and certainly not 21. That is a gap of 6 years, and 6 years is not the kind of difference that gets explained away as a typo or a rounding error. It is the kind of gap that demands a real explanation. Now, mistakes do happen in publishing. Editors misprint ages. Sources provide incorrect information. Fact-checking in 1997 was nowhere near what digital records allow today. All of that is true. But what Bauer reportedly did was not simply stumble across the article and run with it. According to accounts of his research process, he went back to archived copies of the magazine, confirmed the publication date independently, and treated it as a formal piece of evidence rather than a passing curiosity. That is a very different thing from someone casually referencing an old clipping they spotted online.
And on people like me, who don't accept everything she says with absolute unadulterated praise and glory and gratitude. She doesn't see herself other than always being victimized because people don't recognize her greatness and generosity and campaigning fervor.
Why does her age matter at all? Because her age would also have an impact on her ability to have children.
And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem.
The question the article raises is whether it was simply a mistake made by the publication, or whether it reflects something that was, at some point, presented differently by Meghan herself, or on her behalf. And once that question enters the room, it becomes the kind of thing that doesn't leave quietly. If a single magazine article were the only data point, most people would probably file it under printing error and move on. But Bauer's reported findings don't stop there. They extend into the digital world, specifically into Meghan Markle's profile on IMDb, the entertainment industry's most widely used actor database. At some point prior to her relationship with Prince Harry becoming public, Bauer reportedly noted that her IMDb profile listed her birth year as 1977, not 1981. That would make her 4 years older than the widely accepted version of her age. IMDb profiles are closely tied to a performer's professional identity. Studios use them. Casting directors reference them, and actors themselves often maintain or monitor what appears there. So finding a different birth year on that platform, even temporarily, carries more weight than finding the same discrepancy on some random fan-built webpage. What made this particular detail harder to dismiss was that it was reportedly captured in screenshots before the profile was updated. That means it didn't just exist and disappear without anyone noticing. People saw it, saved it, and began comparing it to everything else already in circulation. Once that happens, a detail takes on a life of its own, regardless of whether it gets corrected afterward. To be fair, IMDb can be edited by multiple sources and is not always a perfectly controlled or verified record. Errors do appear there occasionally. But critics argue that when a discrepancy like this lines up with other inconsistencies that have already been identified, it stops feeling like an isolated glitch and starts feeling like part of a pattern. Whether that pattern means something or not is a different question entirely, but the pattern itself is what keeps drawing people back to this conversation. Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois is where Meghan Markle has said she studied, graduating in 2003 with a dual focus in theater and international studies. On the surface, that fits neatly with a 1981 birth year. Standard college timeline, no obvious red flags. For many observers, that detail alone should be enough to close the book on the age debate. But Bauer reportedly dug further than just checking graduation records. According to reports on his research, he examined alumni directories, reviewed group photographs from campus organizations, and reached out to people who were actually present at Northwestern during the years Meghan was enrolled. That kind of legwork goes beyond what most people do when fact-checking a public figure's background. One specific element that has attracted a great deal of attention is a group photograph taken during a salsa dancing club event on campus. Meghan appears in the photo alongside a number of other students. The image itself is unremarkable at first glance, just a group of young people at a university social activity. But when Bauer reportedly spoke with individuals who appeared in the same photo, some of them indicated they were born in the early 1970s. That means several of her apparent peers were born a decade before her, if the official 1981 date is taken as accurate. Now, it is absolutely true that college clubs attract people of all ages, Graduate students, returning students, older undergraduates, and even community members can show up in these kinds of gatherings. So the presence of older individuals in the same photo does not, on its own, prove anything whatsoever. But what it does is give people pause, particularly when it aligns with claims being made through other channels. There was also reportedly an unnamed former classmate who suggested, off the record, that many people who knew Meghan at the time quietly assumed she was older than her official age indicated. That kind of second-hand memory is inherently unreliable, and it is not the sort of thing that can be used to draw firm conclusions. But, in the context of a broader conversation already fueled by other details, it adds another thread to a web that keeps getting more complicated. Thomas Markle has been a controversial and outspoken presence in his daughter's story for years. He has given numerous interviews, made public statements about their relationship, and weighed in on everything from her marriage to her public conduct. Given all of that openness, you might expect a direct question about Meghan's birth year to get a very direct answer. But according to Bauer's account of their interactions, when the subject of Meghan's exact birth year came up, Thomas Markle's response was less clear-cut than expected. Rather than simply confirming the date that appears on every public record, he reportedly deflected, suggesting that people ought to look into the official documents themselves. For most observers, that kind of response from a parent talking about something as basic as their child's birthday raises an eyebrow. Of course, that reaction can be interpreted in multiple ways. He may have been deliberately vague because of the strained relationship with his daughter and did not want to hand ammunition to critics. He may have been misquoted or quoted out of context. He may simply have been tired of the question and responded dismissively. None of those interpretations prove wrongdoing or deception. But they also don't resolve anything, and unresolved details in a story this high profile tend to grow rather than shrink. Then there is Samantha Markle, Meghan's half-sister, who was born in 1964. The accepted timeline places a gap of roughly 17 years between the two. That is a significant age difference by any measure, one that typically means two people have very little shared childhood experience and grow up in almost entirely different generational contexts. But Samantha has spoken publicly about her memories of growing up with Meghan in ways that some people feel do not entirely match a 17-year gap. Her recollections have been interpreted by some as suggesting the two sisters may have been closer in age during their upbringing than the official timeline indicates. If that were the case, even partially, it would narrow the gap and potentially support the idea that Meghan's actual birth year sits somewhere other than 1981. Samantha, it must be said, has her own complicated history with Meghan and has made no secret of her frustrations with how their relationship deteriorated. That context makes her accounts harder to evaluate cleanly. A person with an obvious personal grievance is not the most neutral source, but the detail she raises about their shared upbringing continues to surface in these discussions because, right or wrong, it gives people another thread to examine. Meghan's path through Hollywood before Suits is itself a point of contention in this broader conversation. She spent years auditioning for small roles, doing background work, appearing in minor television parts, and working hard to stay visible in a notoriously competitive industry. None of that is unusual. Many successful actors spend a decade or more grinding before landing their breakthrough role. In 2006, she appeared on the game show Deal or No Deal as one of the briefcase models. Based on a 1981 birth year, she would have been around 24 or 25 at the time, a completely typical age for that kind of appearance. Nothing about it seems out of place in isolation, but Bauer reportedly looked at the broader arc of her early career and saw something that made him question whether the timeline lined up the way it should. The length of the struggle, the specific pattern of roles she was going after, and the way she was being considered for certain parts, when he viewed it through the lens of the ages in question, he felt there were things worth probing more carefully. This is, admittedly, more subjective territory. Career timelines in Hollywood vary enormously. Some actors break through in their early 20s. Others don't find their defining role until their late 30s, or beyond. Using career pacing alone as evidence of age is not a rigorous methodology. But as one more element stacked alongside the others Bauer raised, it adds to a growing list of questions that don't have clean answers. Then Meghan did land her big role. In 2011, she was cast as Rachel Zane in the legal drama Suits, a part she would play for 7 seasons. If she were in her early 30s at the time, which a 1981 birth year would suggest, that fits comfortably within the range of where most actors of that type find significant work. But if she were closer to her mid-30s or even approaching 40, as some of the alternative timelines suggest, it would raise different questions about how she was packaged and presented to the industry during that period. None of this amounts to a smoking gun. But the accumulation of these small, individually explainable details is exactly what has kept this story circulating far longer than most celebrity controversies tend to last. One of the more unusual twists in this entire saga involves official documents connected not to Meghan herself, but to her son, Archie, who was born in May of 2019. When his birth certificate was initially issued, it reportedly listed Meghan's full legal name, Rachel Meghan Markle, in the standard format used for official documents. That alone was entirely unremarkable. What drew attention was what came next. The certificate was later updated to reflect her royal title rather than her birth name, effectively removing the name Rachel Meghan Markle from that version of the document. Name changes and title updates on official records do happen within the royal family, and there is documented precedent for adjustments of this nature. So on its own, the update is not inherently suspicious. But within the context of a broader conversation about inconsistencies in Meghan's documented timeline, some observers saw it differently. If personal details across official records are being adjusted or consolidated in ways that limit how easily they can be compared to one another, critics argue that raises a legitimate question about why. Bauer's interpretation, at least as it has been reported, was that controlling how a name appears across documents is one way to make it harder to connect records that might otherwise tell a more complicated story. That is a significant claim, and it deserves to be treated carefully. There is a meaningful difference between royal administrative procedure and deliberate record manipulation. Making that distinction without hard evidence is something even Bauer himself appeared to acknowledge, presenting it as an interpretation worth examining, rather than a conclusion he could definitively prove. Still, the sequence of events, the name change, the timing, the context of everything else already being discussed ensured that this detail did not simply pass unnoticed. It became one more piece that people began attaching to an increasingly complex picture. When Bauer's book came out and these details started reaching a wider audience, the response from Meghan's side was reportedly swift and firm. Her legal team pushed back hard, characterizing the age-related material as inaccurate and damaging. Efforts were reportedly made to challenge how the information was being framed and to limit its spread in certain media circles. What did not happen, at least publicly, was a detailed line-by-line rebuttal. No official timeline was released walking through each claim point by point. No records were publicly shared to directly contradict the specific documents and accounts Bauer cited. Meghan herself made no direct public statement addressing the age question in any specific way. Silence from a public figure does not mean guilt, and there are many strategic reasons why someone might choose not to engage with a narrative they consider beneath addressing. Responding directly can sometimes amplify a story more than ignoring it does. Publicists and legal teams often advise their clients to let certain controversies die on their own, rather than breathe new life into them by fighting back in public. But silence also creates a vacuum, and vacuums in high-profile stories tend to get filled by speculation. The absence of a clear, documented rebuttal has left the door open for continued discussion, and that discussion has not quieted down. If anything, the reluctance to address the claims specifically has been interpreted by critics as telling in its own right, even though that interpretation is far from certain or fair. This is the nature of public narratives. They don't always follow logic or fairness. They follow attention, and this story has held attention in a way that most celebrity controversies simply don't sustain over time. There have also been conversations, mostly at the edges of this debate, about whether any of these potential inconsistencies could carry legal implications. If details provided in professional contexts, like contracts, agreements, or official entertainment industry documentation, were ever inconsistent with verified records. Some commentators have raised questions about what that might mean in a formal sense. It is important to be clear that these remain hypothetical discussions. No legal action has been taken based on these claims, and no regulatory body has opened any kind of investigation. Legal liability in situations like this depends on a very specific set of conditions: documented intent, verified inaccuracy, proven harm, and a host of other factors that require far more than public speculation to establish. Without that kind of verified evidence, these conversations remain in the realm of theory rather than fact. What they do illustrate is how seriously some people are taking the inconsistencies being discussed. When the conversation shifts from celebrity gossip into territory involving potential document credibility, it signals that at least some observers believe there may be more substance here than a standard tabloid dispute. There are other claims floating around the outer edges of this story that deserve mention, even if they require careful handling. Some voices have suggested that there are gaps in Meghan's early timeline that have never been fully explained. Periods where the public record goes quiet in ways that seem unusual, given how much else has been documented about her life. Bauer himself reportedly stopped short of filling those gaps with specific claims, instead pointing out that they exist and have not been addressed in any transparent or satisfying way. That is a strategically cautious position. Rather than making allegations he could not support, he raised questions and left readers to form their own conclusions. The danger of that approach, of course, is that it creates space for theories far more extreme than anything Bauer himself proposed. And some of those theories have circulated in corners of the internet that are not exactly committed to accuracy or fairness. Claims that cannot be verified have been presented as established fact by some commentators, which muddies the water considerably and makes it harder to separate legitimate questions from pure fabrication. It is worth being honest about that dynamic. Not everything attached to the story is credible. Some of it is clearly driven by personal dislike of Meghan rather than any genuine interest in accuracy. And that reality makes it harder, not easier, to evaluate the claims that do seem to have documented backing. The responsible approach is to focus on what has been reported with sourcing, acknowledge what remains genuinely unresolved, and be honest about the difference between a legitimate, open question and a manufactured controversy. So where does all of this leave us? After everything that has been laid out here, the most honest answer is that there is no definitive proof that settles this debate. What exists is a collection of details that individually might each have an innocent explanation, but that together have convinced a significant number of people that something about the official timeline doesn't quite fit together cleanly. A magazine from 1997 listing an age that doesn't match. A professional database that, at least briefly, showed a different birth year. A university cohort that included people significantly older. A father who gave an oddly vague answer to a basic question. A half-sister whose memories seem to suggest a closer age gap than the records indicate. Official documents that were quietly updated. Legal pushback without a detailed public rebuttal. None of those things on their own proves anything, but together they form a picture that enough people find difficult to fully dismiss. And that is exactly why this story keeps returning to the surface, no matter how many times it seems to settle. Tom Bauer's broader argument, at least as understood through his book and the reporting around it, is that the inconsistencies around Meghan's age are just one piece of a larger pattern involving how her public story has been shaped and presented over time. He argues that the gap between the carefully crafted image and the documented reality is wider than people realize. His critics say he has an agenda, and that the book is an exercise in character assassination dressed up as research. Both of those things can be partially true simultaneously. A person can have a clear critical perspective on their subject and still surface details worth examining. Bias and accuracy are not always mutually exclusive, even if they are often treated as though they are. What is undeniable is that this conversation is not going to disappear anytime soon. As long as the specific details remain unaddressed in any public and verifiable way, they will continue to circulate and continue to attract attention. And in the world of high-profile public figures, unanswered questions have a way of becoming defining questions, whether the person at the center of them chooses to engage or not. That's the real story here. Not just about numbers or dates, but about how public identities are constructed, how they hold up under scrutiny, and what happens when the scaffolding starts to show cracks. Whether those cracks lead somewhere significant or eventually get explained away entirely, the question itself has already changed how many people think about everything Meghan Markle has publicly presented. So tell me what you think. Is there something real here worth continuing to investigate, or has this whole thing been blown so far out of proportion that it's become its own kind of distortion? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to keep going down rabbit holes like this one, hit that subscribe button, because there's plenty more where this came from. The next video is already queued up, and trust me, it goes just as deep.